Welcome to Tales, Tunes, and Tomfoolery starring Jerry Springer, along with Gene Galvin and me. I'm Megan Hills. We're recorded live in front of a brilliant studio audience at the Folk School Coffee Parlor in Ludlow, Kentucky. And now, here's Jerry Springer.
Yo. Thank you very much. It seems like thank you, and it seems like every episode we're doing now, I start off with an apology. My voice has not been fixed since last week, and I'm trying to
Still
shake
not
it.
feeling good.
So I still sound like a frog. Thankfully, I'm still very good looking, but I sound awful, and I don't feel that way. And I looked in the mirror, I don't look that good either.
There you go.
Wow,
But I have no makeup.
rough.
I didn't bring.
It actually fits in perfectly with something. I have to admit, I did not come here happy tonight because
Why are you not happy?
Well, I've been listening to our podcast, and I'm very happy that, I'm digging them, but I noticed something. I feel that I don't get much talk time in the podcast.
Are you serious?
Oh, and this is.
No.
This
Oh, my
is
God.
Oh, people are driving down the roads just beside themselves, saying, "Oh
Millions,
my God,
millions of
we're
people.
not
Are
hearing."
you delusional?
We're
Have
not.
you listened to the same podcast I
Yeah,
have?
I just feel that you guys are constantly jabbering. You've got your little friendship thing going, your chemistry, and you're just over there just talking. You never look over at me. I'm always feeling like I'm pushing into the conversation.
Well,
And
honestly, okay.
I
that's
do
little
have
bit
a
of truth.
solution, and
Okay.
maybe it
What
would
now?
calm me down. You know, Jerry, we've been friends for 45 years. I don't know anybody,
And you're always
but I know,
talking.
but I know
Always
people
talking.
who know people.
Yeah.
And I think I can find kind of a savant somebody who could. A word counter. You've heard of card counters at casinos.
Yes.
I'd like to bring in somebody. I have somebody that I know, or somebody that I know
To
knows
count
somebody.
how many words
to
you
count
talk
words.
versus-
There's somebody that would sit with like a legal pad and would put
we have-
Megan's name, Jerry's name, Gene's name, and would count words.
There
as we're
has to be a way
talking.
that our guys can do that, can't they? I mean, there has to be something out there that can show what's going on.
You think there's some sort of technological
Time out.
invention, Megan,
I'm
that,
thinking
whereby
there
we could know
probably
that?
might
there's
be,
no one
Gene.
listening to this podcast at this moment who could care.
Oh, well, that's a fair point.
Do
But-
you think
but I
people
think-
are pulling over on the side of the road and saying,
Gene
"My God,
Galvin.
he's right.
Let me tell you something.
About time somebody said."
And you know,
Gene
it's
should
funny
talk
you
more."
should. It's funny you should say that because you could get a call from my therapist because this whole thing came up in my therapy, and my therapist says that she doesn't think I'm getting respected, and she brought up Bobby Kennedy again. You used to work for Bobby, God rest his soul, before he died. I believe
Well,
if
not
Bobby
after.
Kennedy was sitting in this chair and we pot up his mic, if he was sitting, that would make headlines if Bobby Kennedy spoke right there. But I think that he would say, in fairness, that Gene should be able to have a little more talk time.
This was his big issue.
This is
That's
it.
what I'm saying.
This was it.
Forget the grape growers, forget
Yeah.
the Vietnam War, forget the burning cities.
Yeah.
I think we can have Gene talk more.
Thank you.
That's what I want. And that's why I want to be
You know,
your
I
president.
have to admit something. I'm kind of goofing around with you because I was having an editing session once with David Pruce of Ambient Studios, and David is funny. He had this big computer screen. Remember this, David?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "Take a look at this." And he said, "When you digitally edit, it is represented by a graphic." Peaks and valleys. Would you say, David? It looks like mountains and valleys. And those frequency
Yes,
waves. Right?
waveforms, yeah.
What are they called?
Waveforms.
Waveforms.
Wow.
I'm talking about the waveforms here, Jerry.
Yeah.
Way technological.
And David
Kept
said-
me up last night.
Yeah.
I thought it was my throat. It wasn't. It was the waveform.
Yeah. He says the purple is you, that's your mic, and green is Jerry, and blue was Megan.
Green is,
and he
green
said,
is right.
And
That's
I looked
me.
at it and I went, oh my God, the purple, that's my waveform,
Yes.
was like constantly there. It was like too much.
No
I know.
kidding.
So I'm making a commitment. I'm going to kind of
Well,
pull
we've
back
been
now.
going now for about 4.5
I have
minutes.
said hardly anything, and there's my
Yeah.
point.
Megan,
By the way-
nice to have you with us.
Thank you, Jerry. It's
Yeah.
a
Megan,
privilege to be here.
This is audio only, but what am I holding in my hand, please?
You are holding an iPhone 6 Plus.
6
yeah?
Plus.
I just got it.
It's yours.
I bought it Monday. Thank you.
Would you
I'm
take out
serious.
the other phone again? Do this very quickly,
Well,
please.
this is
And this is the phone you make calls on.
This is the legit
A
This is
phone.
flip
my
phone.
Well, this is what I use for telephone calls. That is what
See,
I
he
use.
doesn't know. This is a telephone.
iPhone.
iPhone. Thank you.
It's actually
iPhone.
in the title of the product. iPhone.
You hold it up. This is like
It's
holding
bad
up a
grammar.
computer.
It's I will call you. It's not iPhone. You phone, I answer. Yug. What does that mean?
I don't
I have no
know.
idea.
No, I do this though. I don't know what it's for, but this big thing. But you can get emails, and the emails can come from different states.
Yes, it can.
Nice. Yeah,
All
yeah.
over.
So this is
Turns-
very advanced. So don't tell me I don't know my
Can't put a stamp on
You
it,
know
though.
your
That was,
But
that was
this
a
flip
mistake.
phone, nothing beats it for telephone calls.
You're crazy.
I mean, when the call is over, it's over.
Unbelievable.
There are no butt calls or what do you call it?
Butt dials. Butt dials, yeah.
None of that stuff. It's over. And you're not walking down a street with a thing as big as a television set. Hello? Can you hear me?
Jerry, when he calls, I swear to God, and this is not joking, if he's calling from a city that's farther away relatively,
I
he
talk
speaks louder.
Do you really?
Yeah.
I do.
So if he's in an LA
Hello, Gene.
Hey,
I'm calling all the way from New York.
Yeah, it's true.
it's just-
When I first went away to college, my parents called from New York. I was down in New Orleans at Tulane, and my mother would call, "Hello, Gerald, can you hear me?"
Is this thing on? Oh, my
Hey,
Lord.
our partner, I always think of them as the fourth member of the cast, is the Folk School Coffee Parlor
Yep.
Yes.
here in Ludlow, Kentucky. And that's Catfish Williams. By the way, my nickname is Screen Door Galvin.
What
and,
the heck is that?
When I went home and talked to my wife about that after the last episode, she said, I get why you came up with that name, Screen Door, because you can see right through you. That's
And
how
you get
she
slammed
views
a
me.
lot, yeah.
Get
Yeah,
slammed
that's
a
what
lot.
I was saying.
Hey, but I want to ask, Big Dan is the brother of Matt Williams, Catfish Williams, and these guys, before Matt opened Folk School Coffee Parlor, these guys have been doing a folk festival. Jerry, you remember from way back in the day when we were in college, the Newport Folk Festival.
Oh, yeah.
It was huge, and
Yep.
the Newport Jazz Festival.
Yeah.
The Newport Folk Festival had Joan Baez, Bob Dylan, Pete Seeger, the Weavers, etc. And these guys have formed a folk festival in Friendship, Indiana, correct, Dan?
Yes.
Called the Whispering Beard. And I just feel that our listeners need to know about it, maybe come to it, and and you have a website as well.
Yes, it's whisperingbeard.com.
Okay.
And when is the festival? I have the cold. You don't cough. Go ahead.
The festival is August 27th through 30th.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Good.
And you've been doing it 3 years now?
This will be our 8th festival.
Wow. That's awesome. And
Yeah.
Very good.
kinds of groups you get are not just local, regional, correct?
No, we started out with a lot of local musicians. That's where the idea came from. We wanted to get the roots of Cincinnati back, and we've sort of expanded from there. We have about 30 or so acts every year. About half of them will be local, and about half of them will be regional and national acts.
And it's all roots music. So we're talking folk music, bluegrass, and blues?
Yes, we like to expand every year, just because we like to challenge our audience to bands that they may not recognize. They trust us with who we bring in, so we like to bring in different types of acts that they may not have recognized or heard, but when they come to the festival, it'll blow their socks off.
Okay.
This is the whole weekend?
It's a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Okay, awesome.
And when people come, there's camping, correct?
Yes.
So it's sort of
camping,
24-hour day partying, actually, for that long weekend.
20
Wait, really?
So it's a real festival. It's a
23
real,
hours.
real
When?
music festival.
Yeah.
We're not talking, yeah.
Where do you sign up for it?
Yeah, you're not invited.
If we're not performing in Charlevoix that week,
I'll tell you.
we
No,
may
actually,
could
I
be
think
there.
we should be there.
Yeah,
I mean, I hope
okay.
that we can schedule
Yeah.
it and maybe even do something with the podcast down
Yeah.
there.
yeah.
I
How
really
big is
think
the
that.
airport there?
It depends if they've harvested the corn or not.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's all.
So,
The wings.
yeah. we'll land the Gulf Stream here and drive down or
Yeah.
Okay.
something. Yeah,
Yeah.
Because I would love some. Wouldn't you love some time to just sit on that plane? The chances of
we'll
us
never-
ever being in the
no,
air is
no.
like
No, it's
zero.
not gonna
but
happen.
Not going to happen.
No, but it'd be nice to have the invitation. Just
not
a
gonna
thought.
Hey, Dan, thank you very much.
Yeah.
And
Thank you, Dan.
Whispering Beard Folk Festival, is it called Music Festival or Folk Festival?
Folk Festival.
And again, the dates are?
August 27th through the 30th, and you can find more information at whisperingbeard.com.
Thank you. Big Dan wave. Hey, Jerry, I wanted to ask you something that people typically, or you'll hear this, particularly in some news venues, well, there's a war on Christianity in America, and it's almost like a kind of a knee-jerk conservative chant, mantra. And you were telling me that you saw a study that's gotten some
Yeah.
publicity in this recent time period about that. And I wanted to ask you to kind of tell us about it and maybe give your viewpoint about that whole topic of, is there a war on Christianity in America?
The quick answer is no, there's not a war on Christianity in America any more than there's a war on any other religion in America. But in the last couple of weeks, as we're recording this, there's the Pew poll that came out, and it's drawing a lot of attention. And the Pew poll in 2007, and they polled thousands and thousands of people, so this is a huge sample, to ask Americans how they identified themselves in terms of religion, and to either name the religion or if they're agnostic or atheist or whatever particular religion or just not that active or whatever. In 2007, 78% of Americans identified themselves as Christians. Last year, 2014, 7 years later, that number is now down to 70%, which, if you just looked at the number, seems pretty significant. That suddenly 70% of Americans consider themselves Christian. There's no other, about 4% consider themselves, identify as Jews, some as 1% as Islam or whatever. But the great increase has been among those who don't identify with any particular religion. That does not mean that they don't believe in God, they just don't identify with any particular religion. Now, first of all, the question you ask when you see that headline is it accurate? And my thought is, it's probably accurate, but it doesn't tell the story. What I mean by that is, I don't know that there are any more people living in America who don't consider themselves Christian than before. I just think with social media, it has now become more acceptable to express yourself and say, yeah, I was raised a Christian, I was raised a Catholic, I was raised a Jew or whatever, but, now I'm not sure what I believe. In other words, before it was socially unacceptable to ever say you were an atheist. There was a time 20, 30 years ago with Madeline.
Yeah, Madeline O'Hara.
O'Hara, right. That, people were literally stoned in public for saying that they, didn't believe in God. So nowadays, there's so much information out there and so many more people, because they don't have to identify themselves on the internet. They use whatever their names, fake names are. And so when other people who may not be that religious see other people, particularly young people their age, saying, yeah, I'm not so sure I believe in what that particular religion is saying or what my parents are telling me, they feel more comfortable saying it themselves. So I think part of what we're seeing here is really just a change in the times, is that figure probably always was the case. When I say always, last 30, 40, 50 years, is that people are just more open now about saying they don't identify with a particular church. So that's the first thing that comes to mind. And what is happening has nothing, not so much to do with religion, but because of social media today, I believe all institutions, particularly by a younger generation, are being challenged by skepticism, if nothing else. We just don't believe the government that much anymore. We don't necessarily believe our school administrators so much anymore. We don't necessarily listen to our parents as much as we should anymore. There's so much more information out there and opinions being expressed that it becomes easier and easier not to accept as gospel, this is the way it is. So that, I think, is the first thing. But the next question I come up with is, okay, so what does it matter? What does it matter? Now, I happen to believe in God, and my parents were Jewish, so I was raised with Jewish traditions. I know very well that if my parents had been Catholic, I would have been raised with Catholic traditions. It's not like at 2 years old, I suddenly said, this is how it happened. 95% of us, to the extent that we have a religious affiliation or a belief as a young person, is because what our parents do with us. Do they take us to church on Sunday mornings? Do we celebrate Christmas? Do we celebrate Hanukkah? What traditions do you have in your family? And that's, without thinking, you say, yep, you check it off in an application blank, that's my religion. But it's not really a thoughtful debate. And certainly, religion should not be a poll. Religion is not an election. You could be the only person in the world that believes in Jesus Christ, and your faith is just as valid. You aren't a Christian because more people believe in it right now. If it was let's take a vote to verify your beliefs, then you don't really believe it very much. You're waiting for someone else to tell you, yeah, you're with the winning side. Rah, rah. I think when it comes to religion, when numbers matter, people die. When all of a sudden the most important thing is to make sure people have our religion, we have wars. We have all kinds of horrible headlines you read about. And whether it's, quote, radical Islam, whether it's fundamentalist, whether it's a Jewish group, a Christian, whatever the group is, if the goal is you're going to believe as I believe, eventually there'll be conflict. And that's not an opinion. It's just a reading of history. So I just wonder, rather than jumping all over this Pew poll and all the articles that are coming out now, and people saying, see, there's a war against Christianity, and why is there suddenly a decline? And if you are a religious person, it should not matter to you. It's faith. You believe what you believe. I got to tell you, I really don't know. If you held a gun to my head, I say, yes, there's a God. Some power created all of this. And because my family tradition is Jewish, I will use those traditions to thank God for this incredible life we have. So I think it is important to teach our kids to be appreciative, to be thankful. And so I'm not one of those that's saying, look down on people who are fundamentalist or look down on people who are religious. No. In fact, I would even argue, and I've said this in prior elections, I remember when Sarah Palin was first selected by McCain in 2008. When she was first selected, there was almost from our side, the liberal side, Democratic side, there was almost like an elitism, a snobbery. We didn't yet know about competency with Sarah Palin. It was kind of like, she's fundamentalist and she's got those crazy views and stuff like we were looking down on a person for really having faith. And I'm saying that's dangerous. That's dangerous. You want to not like Sarah Palin because of her policies or because of her competency, but if we start making fun of middle America, if we start making fun, quote, of Kentucky, and those hicks, those whatever, and it happens, the most powerful force in politics is resentment. Once people resent the way you treat them, you will never win an argument to get them back. It doesn't matter how logical you are. They know deep inside you're making fun of them. You don't really respect them. You think they're less. And that could do with race. It could do with geography. It could do with income level. That kind of snobbery has to stop. So I bring this full circle to say, it doesn't matter how many people consider themselves of a particular faith. If that is your faith and that's what you believe, God bless you.
You know, I'll add one other factor, maybe raise one more question, Jerry. In the Catholic Church, 10, 12, 15 years ago, and it's sort of ongoing, we might be at the tail end of it, I hope we are, has suffered this huge scandal of priests abusing children, largely guy priests abusing young boys. And it was unbelievable that that happened. And I know, just from reading things, that church attendance, Catholic membership, dropped like a rock. Not totally down to nothing, but it really cut into them. My God, donations, tithing.
My mother, Italian Catholic, was so upset. My family was so upset. They felt so betrayed by the Catholic Church. I think the numbers, and it was just indicative of what everybody else felt.
Yep. And therefore, people, I imagine if you ask somebody a poll question who is a Catholic, there could be some residual effect of that as well.
Absolutely.
And then there's another thing I was thinking about, we were thinking about talking about this, is that TV evangelists have probably not helped either to cause some people to kind of step back because, the Jim and Tammy Baker and others, hypocrisies that are glaring that people then say, I just don't want to be associated with that. There's a famous quote from a play called Hadrian VII, which is, I don't hate the faith, I hate the faithful. In other words, these sins that I'm now dropping here on the table are sins of men, sometimes women as well, but sins of human beings. And the doctrine of these faiths, whether it's Allah or Judaism, Catholicism, Christianity, is, for the most part, a pretty darn good message. But as soon as you intermingle human beings with it, some pretty crazy things can happen. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's a pretty interesting. I think it will cause those who want to try to make money on certain newscasts of saying, there's some. Fox News is famous for this. There's a war on Christmas, a war on Christians, and it's usually a line from a business plan that it is journalistic truth.
Yeah, and it's become a political force, and politicians are using it to get a wedge issue and get people to vote for them.
And you wonder if that, there are some people who hate the politicization of religion.
Right.
And that can cause some people to step back. And it really falls to young people to see whether those numbers are dropping. Where a lot of young people say, I don't. I have a daughter who is very spiritual, and I think, and I don't want to speak for her, but I think it's safe to say, she wouldn't mind me saying this, she really struggles with organized religion, with institutional religion, not her belief system. And I put her into a younger generation.
And I'm exactly the same way. Raised Catholic, I know what I believe in, but I do have trouble with aligning myself with an organized religion. And I think amongst my friends, it's a very common conversation that we have.
Yep.
Well, throughout history and even recently, various churches have been very political, and they had to, because that's how they kept power and kept in existence. Yep. So they had to deal with whoever was in power. Usually they did it through education. I know that's true of the Catholic Church in South America, that with a lot of these dictatorships, the church has remained the one institution that the dictators don't mess with. And the trade-off is, we will take care of educating the masses, but you leave us alone. And the church agrees not to try to topple the dictators. It certainly was the case with the Pope in Poland. The fall of communism, let's be honest, it was the Pope and Gorbachev as much as anybody. I know we Americans always like to say, well, we did it, Reagan did it or whatever, and they made some smart decisions, but please, communism fell from within. And if we had just believed what we were preaching about communism, see, we didn't believe what we were saying. We were saying it's a corrupt system, it'll fall apart, but we didn't believe it, so we kept building more and more missiles. If we would have just believed it, it would collapse just as it did, because it's not viable.
I'm sitting here trying to think how to transition from a discussion of religion over to simply Dan's string band.
There's absolutely
and
no
the only
way.
thing, and the one thing I was thinking, Megan, is that you and I, as we Catholics do, we speak in code and we'll speak Latin. If they would do Tantum Ergo, do you remember Tantum Ergo?
Oh my God.
That would sort of bring
Bring it all together.
the
It's
whole
not
circle
now.
around.
So you don't know Haba Nagila.
Our musical guest tonight, and we always look forward to this, always a root singer, in this case a group, and a songwriter. And we have with us tonight Dan, who is, and it's Dan Van Vechten.
Yep.
And Dan's group is called Simply Dan String Band.
Yep.
And they're going to do a song, and after you do it, Dan, we'd like to chat with you for
Sure.
few minutes here about the song and your background, etc. What song are you going to do, Dan?
This is a song called Get Right.
Get Right. Sounds religious. Perfect. Let's go.
Well, it's, take a second to make sure I'm in tune again. I've been doing the 52-week club at Folk School Parlor since it started in
And let me
November.
mention what that is. So the 52-week club is a gathering of people. They're here every night when we come in on a Tuesday evening for the Jerry Springer podcast, Tales, Tunes, and Tomfoolery. And it's a group of songwriters who use the structure of a weekly prompt, a word or a phrase or sentence, to write a song. And Dan and I were talking before this podcast that, and you used a good analogy, if you're an artist and every week your art teacher gives you a topic to draw a picture of, let's say, or paint a picture. So it's a great discipline, a great structure to do it. So keep talking. So did this song come out of that by any chance?
Yeah, the topic we'll throw topics into a hat, everybody that's in the group.
Yep.
And then we pull one out, and that becomes the topic for the next week. So it can be a challenge if you really draw a blank when you first see it, and sometimes you get it and everybody is ready to run. The only unwritten rule we give each other is you can't use it to finish a song you already started. But there's no rule against going into your notebook and finding all the scraps of things that might relate. So the topic that we drew that week was black and white, and the idea of if you ain't right, get right was a line that I'd heard somebody say to somebody. Most of the things in this song are things that I'd written down over the course of months, and then eventually, I found stuff that related. But that's what this one is. So I wanted to play this one tonight because it was from the Folk School Parlor. This is one of the ones we did for this. Ready? She said I'm broken, but you won't hear me complain. I swear I'm getting stronger, holding on to all this pain, while I'm waiting with white knuckles till my situation's change. If I let you in right now, I'd just put you out again. And I believed her. She believed that it was true. She couldn't trust her ticker, and her timer's out of tune. I said I don't know what to say or what you're hoping I would do, but if I fell for you right now, I should feel more concerned than you. If you ain't right, get yourself right. It may not come too easy, and it won't come overnight. For better or for worse, it ain't always black and white. If you ain't right, get yourself right. And then she showed me a scar from where she'd healed. It caused a pain all of its own. I bet she meant for me to feel. I said those scars are prized possessions from the lessons that you learn. 'Cause ignorance is bliss, but eventually it burns. If you ain't right, get yourself right. It may not come too easy, and it won't come overnight. For better or for worse, it ain't always black and white. If you ain't right, Get yourself right. I said for better or for worse. It ain't always black and white if you ain't right. Get yourself right.
That's great, guys. That's the Simply Dan String Band. They're from Cincinnati, Ohio. Their website is simplydanstringband.com. On mandolin, we had Will Kimball and John Castetter on bass. And Dan, tell me something. You've talked about where the song came from. Are you a full-time musician and songwriter? Or what's your life full of?
My life is pretty well balanced. I climbed a career path in higher education as an administrator, and I was a dean at a local college and worked all the time and felt like I wasn't in the right place. And I loved all the fundamentals of why I was there, but it just didn't feel like me. And I left that job thinking I was going to go find something else, and I would occupy my time by going to open mics, and I started meeting some of these people that were writing songs. And I was raised on folk and old country. So I made friends with people who, my timing couldn't have been better. I just lucked into finding a couple of really good open mics that drew really good players that are in bands all around. And I met, I know just about everybody who's been playing for these. In fact, Pat Kennedy, who does the theme song for this,
Yep.
That song sounds the way it does because I basically crawled in Pat's back pocket for about a year and learned all the songs that he would show me. And so when we play out, we play 3 or 4 of his songs, and we play a lot of songs that were written within 10 miles of here because I'm so submerged in just wanting to learn how to be a songwriter and how do these guys do what they do. So when I found a part-time job, I was very satisfied because by then I was playing a lot of music, and so now I'm starting to really get a little traction with it. And so
What a great story.
So part of my day is as an academic advisor at Cincinnati State Community College, and what I love about it is that I relate to those students more than I've related to students since I was younger. It was a lot easier to relate to their college experience, and now I see students all the time who are my age or not, but they're all in phases of life where they really want to do something different, and I can relate to that again. And so I have a really cool balance in life being able to do this.
It's a good story. Good story.
Lucky.
Would you mind taking us out with the singing of a song that's become sort of our closing theme song? It's
Yeah.
an old song, old public
Well, let me
domain
get the
song,
words.
Irene Goodnight by Hootie Ledbetter. This is the Simply Dan String Band.
Saturday night I got married. Me and my wife settled down. Now me and my wife have parted. Think I'll take a little stroll downtown. Irene, good night. Irene, good night. Good night, Irene, good night, Irene. I'll see you in my dreams.
Sometimes I live in the country. Sometimes I live in town.
Give it a man's voice.
Sometimes I take a great ocean to jump in the river and drown.
You've been listening to Tales, Tunes, and Tomfoolery, sponsored by the Folk School Coffee Parlor in Ludlow, Kentucky. Thanks to Patrick Kennedy for writing our opening song, and to you for listening. Hope to see y'all again real soon.
I'll see you in my dreams.
before we quit, just 1 second before we quit, do you have a count on how many words Jene said versus how many words I said?
Yeah. It looks like from the graph that I'm looking at, Megan was speaking about 20% of the time, Jerry about 30%, and then the remaining 50%.
That's right. Yeah. See?
I demand a recount. I want my word counter in here.
You all come back now. Thanks a lot.